WNBA Indiana Fever coach Stephanie White speaking out against the online harassment she says Phoenix Mercury forward Alyssa Thomas is receiving after the incident involving Caitlin Clark last week. White coached Thomas in Connecticut for 2 seasons, but there's concern about this shift in narrative that seems to be happening, which seems to make Thomas the victim in all of this. Let's get to our senior correspondent, John Huddy, who's covering this for us today. John?
Yeah, and Shannon, Alyssa Thomas, for those of the viewers who don't follow the WNBA, is a forward for the Phoenix Mercury. She put her fist on the throat of Indiana Fever point guard Caitlin Clark during a pretty rough game last week. Now, Thomas said that it was unintentional, but there's been really a firestorm on social media about whether Clark, the WNBA superstar and really, essentially the face of the league, is being unfairly targeted by some of the other players. I'll get to that in a moment. But first, no foul was called after Thomas and Clark, as you see there, scrambled for a loose ball during that game, June 24th in Indianapolis. Clark, who is among the very few white, straight, and Christian players in the league, left the game with an injury. Thomas, who is black and openly gay, later received a $1,000 fine and a 1-game suspension. Well, since the incident, Thomas complained that her team was being, quote, painted as thugs and that she's faced harassment and racial backlash online. Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White, instead of addressing the lack of a foul being called or previous incidents between both teams and players possibly targeting her star player, instead gave a lecture about inclusivity, homophobia, and racism. Here's part of it. Listen.
Before we start with questions, I just want to address, what's going on with AT. I think first and foremost, it's absolutely unacceptable. I think as a league, as a whole, there's been so much more toxicity, racism, homophobia, straight out nonsense, hate nonsense, and it is absolutely unacceptable.
Now, Tuesday, the WNBA released a statement condemning, quote, any and all forms of hate. But some question right now, Shannon, if the WNBA has a bigger racial problem among its own players.
Yeah, they're not talking about it at all, are they? John Huddy, thank you. The coaches seem to be confusing the issue for us. To further weigh in, let's welcome in GOP strategist Clare to chat a bit more about it. Also with us today, the executive editor at Occupy Democrats, Grant Stern. Thanks to both of you for joining us today.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us on.
Claire, let's start with you. Thomas says that the contact was unintentional, and she didn't realize that it happened until afterward. Does intent matter, do you think, when the league reviews plays like this?
I think at the end of the day, what we need to focus on is it was pretty black and white what happened. And that, yes, there's a lot of discussion right now, and there's a lot of pushback from fans. But the main thing that they're upset about is the fact that the WNBA isn't acting and isn't applying standards fairly amongst all their players. And especially a player who, like we've discussed, is really becoming the face of kind of the WNBA and their brand.
Yeah, Grant, the WNBA did come out with that statement at the end of John Huddy's report saying hate of all kind, is not good. Your thoughts, your take?
I mean, look, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Allison Thomas's foul probably should have been called. It wasn't really a great way to play ball. And yeah, everybody agrees that Caitlin Clark is getting beat up by a lot of different WNBA players. But people kind of forget the old NBA, and there was a lot more rough play back then too. So I feel like this is just the evolution of the WNBA from a league that wasn't very culturally relevant to suddenly becoming really culturally relevant and actually making a big splash nationally for the first time. People are paying attention now. So, for them, it's probably a plus, even though it's a controversy. Controversies in refereeing are as old as sports.
There's always been rough play, but, I don't remember in the WNBA, and, full transparency, I'm not a huge follower, but, I don't remember a time that one player has been the source or the recipient, I should say, Claire, of so much of the violence.
Exactly. And that's, at the end of the day, what we should be focused on is sports being something that brings us together rather than pulls us apart. And I think that we're seeing this kind of elevated, rhetoric and heat, and not just the hot weather in D.C. We're seeing it across all areas of politics and culture. I know just last week I was reading headlines about Congresswoman Kat Cammack being concerned about a threat on her life. So I think across the board, we are seeing these elevated levels of tension and rhetoric. And it's just not a good thing that we're having in our culture.
I want to talk about the president. He was asked yesterday and dismissed the critics who are suggesting that he's profiting off of the presidency. Listen to this.
You know why I'm profiting? Because the stock market's going up. Everybody's profiting. If you have a 401k, how's your 401k done? It's about up 85%. Thank you, President Trump.
Okay, so Grant, he's not wrong. I mean, he handled that question very well. Everybody's profiting. What was he supposed to do? Pull everything out of the market when he, took over the presidency?
You know what he was supposed to do? He was supposed to make less than 3,700 trades while he's running America and while he's starting wars that are bankrupting people with high gas prices, high food prices, and the jobs market is just sucking wind. I mean, 57,000 new jobs doesn't even keep up with population growth. That's how many we had in June. And the labor force participation rate went down 0.3% in June alone. So the labor force participation rate is really low right now, something Republicans complained about for years. And here's Donald Trump trading the stock market very actively, including a lot of trades that he's initiating. And he's initiating them after getting inside information, after meeting with people. His sons are profiting on deals in Kazakhstan, according to the New York Times, after he and Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, met with the head of that nation. And Lutnick's sons are also profiting on the deal. This is an orgy of corruption happening in the White House.
Okay.
And I don't think we're going to see an end to it until Donald Trump leaves.
Grant, you want me to bring up Hunter Biden here? I mean, come on. You want to talk
Hunter
about
Biden
sons
sold a
profiting
painting.
off of...
He's like a panhandler. That's a great comparison. He's like a panhandler. These guys are like white-collar criminals. They are stealing billions of dollars in profit for Donald Trump in just a year and a half.
But to be fair, the president said before he was elected that he'd turn the reins of his companies over to his sons. And he did say...
No, he's making money on them, too. He owns those companies still. He's making that money.
He turned the reins over to his sons, and what he said in that press briefing... What he said in that press briefing, if you had let the soundbite, if we had let the soundbite played out, was that his sons were handling trades, and he doesn't even know about the trades. Claire, you jump in on this.
The trades that are reported.
Let's let
the
Claire.
Trades are reported. Oh, sorry.
Let's let Claire respond.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say my thoughts on all of this is that I would like to see the stock market increase, and that's exactly the kind of answer I would have expected. He is a businessman, and like you said, he turned over operations of his businesses to his sons, which was the right thing for him to do. But ultimately, I'm a mom. I've got 3 kids. I want to be able to see a future where we can be financially prosperous. And I know July 4th is the Trump accounts, and we are very blessed to have 3 little boys, and I'm excited to be opening up Trump accounts for them. But it is something that across the board, we have seen the stock market increase, but there's always more work to be done. We want to see the prices of energy come down. I think that's been a big discussion with Iran. And really, what can we do as Americans to focus on innovation and energy independence so that we're not wrapped up in a conflict in the Middle East halfway across the world? We need to be able to have reliable and affordable energy for our own people.
And gas prices are starting to come down. And to your point, Grant, we'll be tackling those job numbers here in this program. Clare Ath, Grant Stern, great conversation as always. Good to see you both. Happy 4th of July.
Thanks for having us. Happy 4th.